Good morning, honored guests and friends. On behalf of the board and the staff of the Thomas Jefferson Foundation, welcome to Monticello on the eve of Thomas Jefferson's 281st birthday. If I can ask you now to please rise and place your hand over your hearts and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. My name is Jane Kamensky, and since mid-January, I've had the privilege of serving as president of the Thomas Jefferson Foundation. I'm glad to share this first Founders Day for me with so many staff, friends, family, descendants, and supporters of this miraculous institution. In a moment, you'll have the privilege to hear from our brilliant trustee, Ms. Michelin Woodard, who will introduce the morning's speakers. Ms. Julieanna Richardson, the founder of HistoryMakers and recipient of this year's Thomas Jefferson Foundation Medal in Citizen Leadership, and Dr. Andrea Douglas, executive director of the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center and recipient of the Thomas Jefferson Foundation Award in Citizen Service. But before I turn over the podium, I'd love to spend just a couple minutes thinking with you about Jefferson and the burdens of citizenship. Jefferson believed in the spirit of the people, as he put it in an 1814 letter to then President James Monroe, who lived just down the way. Even if Jefferson failed to see all of the American people as capable of taking the reins of their demanding form of government, he knew that the country's destiny lay in the hands of ordinary individuals, yeoman farmers, as he often pictured them. Jefferson also knew that a republic could only function with an educated and an engaged populace. Ignorance and despotism seem made for each other, he wrote in 1796, after his beloved French Revolution had taken a turn into despotism. Events at home as well as abroad showed that the people needed schooling as well as spirit. Quote, "Our liberty can never be safe but in the hands of the people themselves, people with a certain degree of instruction," Jefferson told George Washington. He also argued that providing instruction was the business of the state to effect and on a general plan. That was the rationale behind the capstone achievement he listed on his tombstone, the founding of the public University of Virginia. Late in his life, Jefferson also bemoaned the mob mentality that he witnessed in the tumultuous presidential election of 1824, in which the losing populist candidate, Andrew Jackson, claimed was stolen from him through a corrupt bargain in Congress. Quote, "I confess that what we have seen in the course of this election has very much dampened the confidence I had hitherto reposed in the discretion of my fellow citizens," Jefferson wrote shortly before the inauguration of John Quincy Adams. Jefferson lamented the, quote, "ignorance of character, the personal partialities, and the inattention to the qualifications of candidates that he had witnessed among the electorate." That work is where our medalist and award recipient come in. As you may know, the Thomas Jefferson Foundation Medal in Citizen Leadership joins companion medals in law, architecture, and global innovation, recognizing individuals who personify qualities at the core of Jefferson's vision of an enlightened and educated American people. Each year, the medalists give us reason to celebrate and to hope. They remind us that the values of education, freedom, equality, and self-government remain works in progress, shaped by the contributions of individuals like our honorees and like all of you here today. Julieanna Richardson and Andrea Douglas are each in the Jeffersonian business of schooling citizens. They discover and share more complete histories, which build the capacities of learners of all ages to steer our ship of state forward. We owe them a profound debt. And now, to introduce our keynote speaker, please welcome Ms. Michelin Mickey Woodard, trustee of the Thomas Jefferson Foundation.
Thank you, Jane. And I'm going to try to make this brief so that we can get to the most important speakers of the morning. But it is my privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Julieanna L. Richardson, the recipient of the 2024 Thomas Jefferson Foundation Medal in Citizen Leadership. Here's a little bit about her. She's a graduate of Harvard Law. She graduated from Brandeis University with a double major in theater arts and American studies, where she did extensive oral history interviews on the Harlem Renaissance, and later poet and writer Langston Hughes. She worked as a corporate lawyer at the Chicago law firm of Jenner and Block. She was the cable administrator for the city of Chicago, and she currently sits on the Honors Council of Lawyers for the Creative Arts, Simmons University Dean's Advisory Council of the Gwen Ifill College of Media, Arts, and Humanities, and James Madison University's Flowerings Advisory Council. Julieanna embodies the idea of a citizen leader. She's the founder and president of the HistoryMakers, You're going to hear a lot more about their work, but their collection is housed permanently at the Library of Congress. It's available to anyone with internet access, which I suppose is probably everybody out here. In 20 years since its launch, here are some statistics. The HistoryMakers has recorded the stories of Black pioneers in various fields, including Hank Aaron, Maya Angelou, Colin Powell, Barack and Michelle Obama, President Barack and Michelle Obama, and more than 200 of the nation's top Black scientists. HistoryMakers is preserving these living libraries for generations to come. Julieanna has been awarded honorary doctorates from Howard, Dominican University, Brandeis University, and Bates College. And in 2014, Black Enterprise awarded her its Legacy Award. Let me tell you, her TED Talk, The Mission to Safeguard Black History in the US, it's a must watch. It's fantastic. So this has been a journey. And there are two people in this journey that are here, and I want to be sure to acknowledge them. Her mother, Margaret, right there in the front row, and her sister, Kimberly. So I'm going to close with some of Julieanna's own words. These are words that she said at the commencement speech at Brandeis in 2016. You said there are also two men who are a critical part of your story. Unfortunately, neither are here today, but they are somewhere shouting, praying, hugging, and embracing and telling everyone she's there. That's our Julieanna. Do you see her there? We didn't get there, but there she is. One represents survivors of the Holocaust, and the others, the descendants of the formerly enslaved. One was born in the boroughs of New York, and the other in a small Pennsylvania mining town. Both had great intellects. Both dreamt of a better world and saw the best in others. One was your father, and the other was your mentor. Last night, I asked your mom, I said, what are you most proud of in your daughter's trajectory? And you know what she said? She said, I don't like to say the word proud. I like to say grateful. I am grateful for our family, and more specifically, I am grateful for my husband, Julius Richardson, because he taught us the importance of giving back. Julieanna got her dedication to service by watching his example. This work that she does is hard. It's relentless, it's demanding, and every day you continue to make a choice to fight for us, to fight for me, to fight for our history, to fight for our stories. I am, and we are thrilled to welcome Julieanna to Charlottesville and incredibly proud of the work that you've done and the work that you will continue to do. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Margaret and Julius's daughter and Kimberly's sister, Julieanna Richardson.
Mickey, you're dangerous. Yeah, those were my two mentors. And sorry, I'm teary-eyed. I can't tell you how much it means to be here. Today, I have felt especially welcome by the Thomas Jefferson Foundation family, Tobias Dengel, University President Jim Ryan and his wife Katie, Ian Solomon, who's Dean of UVA's Banton School of Leadership and Public Policy, and his wife, Marcia Chen. I loved our conversations. Mickey, you tore me up once, twice. And then yesterday I had a wonderful meeting with Andrew Davenport and Gail Jessup White, who are part of the descendant community here. And Gail's husband, former Time columnist Jack White, is one of our history makers. I'm thrilled also to share The 2024 Thomas Jefferson Foundation Federalist Honors with MacArthur Genius Grant awardee, landscape architect Kate Orff, and one of our history makers, Chief Justice Roger Gregory, who was the first African-American Chief Justice for the Fourth Circuit of Appeals. As they say, I'm in high cotton. And Jane, I'm so proud that you have been chosen to lead this important cultural institution at such a significant time in our nation's history. It was under your leadership as director of Harvard Radcliffe's Schlesinger Library that the collections of legal scholar Lonnie Guinier and activist Angela Davis, among others, were added to the nation's most prestigious collection on Americans' women. Thomas Jefferson saw the preservation of documents as essential to citizen leadership. On October 4th, 1823, right here in Monticello, he wrote, "It is the duty of every good citizen to use all of the opportunities for preserving documents relating to the history of our country. This is the essence of our work at the HistoryMakers. Otherwise, those who do not know their history are doomed to repeat it." As Jane, you have stated, Thomas Jefferson's Monticello carries the weight of our past, the challenges of our present, and the enormous potential of our shared future. When I look out on this morning, after the rain has cleared and the wet moisture is still in the air, I have so many emotions. I think of the grandeur and the intentionality of this place, a place where great minds thought great thoughts. Thomas Jefferson was a creator. The Declaration of Independence, the University of Virginia and West Point. He was a politician, president, vice president, governor, secretary of state. He was a public servant, ambassador, the Library of Congress. The United States was an experiment, and he wanted to ensure its continued viability, but he left an amazing record of his life, 19,000 letters. We know we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. This has been a guiding light, a moral code for the United States as we work to enlarge the umbrella to include all people. And then there was his mantra: when angry, count 10 before you speak. Very angry, count 100. Lord knows how I need to adopt that mantra. But for today, I want to focus on the Thomas Jefferson quote. It says, "Experience hath shewn," means shown, "that even under the best forms, those entrusted with power have in time and by slow operations perverted into tyranny. And it is believed that the most effectual means of preventing this would be to illuminate as far as practicable the minds of the people at large." Thomas Jefferson was talking about the role of the educated citizenry as a balance against tyranny and the endurance of a democratic state. This is very relevant to our issues of today. As a Black woman, though, I cannot think of Thomas Jefferson without thinking of Sally Hemings and the Hemings family and the first-person accounts of Madison Heming, the historical analysis of Annette Gordon Reed and others who are giving voice to the Hemings and Monticello's enslaved population. You know, I actually feel their presence here today. I can even see them peeking behind those trees. They're curious that I'm standing here today. But as I stand here speaking to you, I seek to honor them in order to tell a more fuller, more complete story of our nation's history. Now, I want to get personal here now. My great-grandfather, we called him Papa. We would whisper, "Papa was born a slave." When he died, it was reported. Now, we knew that also slaves didn't really talk about slavery. It was too hard. And when he died, it was reported in the Pittsburgh Courier that he had left over 100 offspring. I'm one of them. His mother was a breeder, used to breed large numbers of young enslaved to increase the plantation's productivity. My focus has for almost the last quarter of a century been to tell the stories of Black America, to ensure their inclusions in our nation's patrimony. Why? Because a melting pot cannot melt unless it has all of its parts. You cannot bake a cake or make delicious gumbo if you don't have all the ingredients. Now, I've told the story of our family's move to this small town, Newark, Ohio, where there were only 1,000 Blacks out of 50,000 whites, and I was the only Black kid in my class. My only reference for Black achievement was George Washington Carver, which my white teacher talked about with great fervor. I mean, he could do all these things with peanuts. But how was that possible when the pictures of slaves were staring at me and my classmates from the textbooks? It's only recently that I learned that Black history was all around me, even in that small Ohio town. The 5th president of Liberia, James Royce, had been born in Newark, Ohio in 1815. He had been profoundly affected as a young boy when the town's fathers gathered up all the Black people and told them they had to leave town. So his family later, as part of the American colonization movement, moved to Liberia, where he moved up the ranks and became the president. Now, what if I had been taught, I and my classmates have been taught that history? Could that have changed the trajectory of our lives or our perceptions? I would not have been compelled to lie and carry with me the burden of knowing I had lied that day when our teacher asked us about our family backgrounds. I mean, my classmates' hands went up like arrows into the sky. I'm part German, I'm part Italian, I'm part French. I mean, I'm literally cowering in the corner. I don't know Negro, I don't know colored. I mean, this is before James Brown, I'm Black and I'm proud. And I said, I don't, Negro colored. I added a Native American because most Black people think they have Native American in them. And I also added in French because they had all these hyphenates and I didn't want to be let out. Now, I had no knowledge of Haiti or Cote d'Ivoire or Senegal, and probably neither did my teacher. She looked at me and I looked back, and that horrible feeling stayed with me until my sophomore year at Brandeis University that Mickey was telling you about, where I'm doing research on the Harlem Renaissance. There I am in New York Schomburg's library with my headphones on. It's a gray day, sort of like today, but in the fall. The leaves were a golden brown. And I can't tell you the elation that I felt when I learned for the first time that this song that I associated with President Henry Truman was written by a Black songwriting team of Noble Sissle and Eubie Blake in the 1921 production of Shuffle Along on Broadway. I mean, you could have taken me and flown me around the streets of Harlem. I had found myself. You know, Billie Holiday sang in String of Fruit. God bless the child who has its own. Now, I could not have articulated that at the time, but I did not want any child to feel the way that I felt that way in the classroom when I did not have history. I did not feel that I have a history and a legacy to call my own, especially when I had a history as rich and complex as my classmates, consciously or consciously. HistoryMakers was born out of that desire and the need to leave a legacy. I was in my mid-40s, without children, started to think what I was going to do to leave behind. How was I going to make society a better place? I took my theatrical training from Interlochen Arts Academy in Brandeis, my degree in American Studies, my legal training from Harvard Law School, and the support of those who dared to believe in my vision to build a dream as we crossed it. We have interviewed almost 3,700 African American leaders in 451 cities and towns. The Library of Congress, it's true, is our permanent repository. You don't know how that makes me feel, that under one roof are the stories of the formerly enslaved and the stories of the descendants of the formerly enslaved. That is why today is special to me. Our digital archive is in 211 colleges and universities, including at UVA. That is why today is special to me. In preparation for today's presentation, I decided to go in searching in the digital archive with the terms Thomas Jefferson, Monticello, and Hemings. There were hundreds of results. Former corporate CEO Jim Kaiser and newspaper editor Mary Ellen Butler spoke of being able to trace their history back to Monticello and the Hemings and the Fawcett's. Political scientist Charles Henry's great-great-grandfather served as the keeper of the natural bridge in Monticello. Tom Jefferson had purchased it from Great Britain's George III for 20 shillings in 1774. Activist lawyer Constance Rice spoke of the complexities of having mixed-race enslaved under the same roof as the master's children, and how some of them were sold to neighboring plantations to ease the problems that ensued. Former museum director Amina Dickerson told of how her mother would bring she and her siblings here to Monticello while saying, "You see these bricks? Those bricks were built by slaves, so don't ever think that you don't have a part of this legacy. You built this legacy." Then there's the marvelous testimony of Sweet Honey in a Rock, Bernice Johnson Reagan. She said, "As a historian, I learned not to throw away stories that I learned through the oral culture. Back then, people said Thomas Jefferson had Black children. We're studying Thomas Jefferson. Ain't nothing in my history book that said he had some Black children." But that's what my teachers were whispering. And then I went through years of being trained as a historian with that statement being dismissed by the major scholars of Thomas Jefferson. And sometimes going to school makes you mistrust the stories that you've gotten from your people because it's not been tested and it's not convenient. Thank goodness for DNA. Consider the possibility, and I just want you to consider this. I've learned a lot of things in doing this work, that in many ways, both the Black and white community, with others standing on the side, have acted in unintended complicity to cover up this rich history. White people don't want to feel guilty, and Black people don't want to feel ashamed. I was ashamed of my enslaved ancestors. But guilt and shame have no place anymore in our American lexicon. Look at the pernicious forces at work today. There's a full frontal attack on the teaching of Black history, where laws now say that something should not be taught that causes students to feel discomfort, anguish, guilt. The vagueness of these laws will and can foment litigation. And then what about the Black child? What about them and their feelings, their discomfort, their sense of self-worth? 18 states, including here in Virginia, have enacted anti-CRT laws. Last year, this is my personal experience, a conference organizer asked me to keep my comments on the up and up. I was like, what do you mean? What's that mean on the up and up? Another one asked me not to use Black in the title, only multicultural, but I said I'm a Black project. And just last week, a corporate sponsor who wants to give us money asked me not to include Black or African American in the description of my project. I'm being asked to lie. I lied when I was 9 years old because I did not think I had a legacy to call my own. Now I'm being asked to lie because I'm documenting and seeking the inclusion of the legacy of America's population in our America. This is helping set the stage for the inclusion of other lost American stories, I mean our work. Remember Thomas Jefferson's warning against tyranny and his call for documentation of the history of our nation. He says it is the duty of every citizen to use all the opportunities for preserving documents relating to the history of our country. We literally cannot have an educated citizenry if we do not have the humanities. Use of primary sources, civic education at the center. You here at Monticello are leading the way. At the HistoryMakers, we are in lockstep with you. We continue to build our bridge as we cross it so that our content can be relevant for today and for the child who is not yet born. Thank you so much for this time.
Thank you, Juliana, and thank you for building that bridge of partnership to the work of Monticello and the University of Virginia. It's very powerful. And now we turn to Dr. Andrea Douglas. In concert with recognizing Juliana and the HistoryMakers and their dedication to recording neglected and suppressed voices and sharing them in our classroom and embedding them in our national consciousness, we are humbled and honored also to recognize the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center for their extraordinary efforts to preserve the rich history and legacies of the African American communities of Charlottesville, of Albemarle County, and beyond. We are honored to present the Thomas Jefferson Foundation Award in Citizen Service, recognizing the organization in Charlottesville, Albemarle County, doing the work to strengthen the bonds among us that ensure life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all. We invite Dr. Andrea Douglas, Executive Director of the Jefferson School, to accept on its behalf the Thomas Jefferson Foundation Award in Citizen Service. Everyone, please welcome Dr. Andrea Douglas.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Juliana, for bringing me into this company. I feel it's wholly honored to be kindred spirits with the two of you. So it gives me great pleasure to accept this award on behalf of the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center Board and my staff, Leslie Scott Jones, Jordy Yeager, and Paige Kelly, as well as the countless volunteers whose efforts have made us who we are today. The award recognizes over 10 years of work. Since 2013, the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center has offered an interdisciplinary program that hopes to reduce the temporal distance between the past and the present. From the onset, we were charged with telling the history of the Jefferson School, the freedmen's school that began just months after emancipation and existed for 100 years in the center of Charlottesville until it closed in 1965 as the Black Elementary School. Within the walls of the building we occupy, African Americans persisted in the development of community, even as Virginia tightened its system of white supremacy. In relating the history of this school, we ostensibly tell the story of what happened to African American people once they left the many plantations that populated Central Virginia. We began our program surrounded by elders who held this narrative. Some of these people are still with us, but more have passed on. Almost lost that. We've taken their stories and built an institution guided by their traditions of excellence, forged by a need to survive within a communal practice designed to squelch their desires for freedom. At the Heritage Center, we are teachers. We've been working with local schools since our inception. In 2015, we created a Trailblazers program, our museum studies program, that has trained high school students to research our exhibitions and give our public tours. In 2020, we began embracing our narratives, our Summer Teacher Training Institute. And in 3 years, just under 100 educators have been trained to tell this story of this place through the lens of African American people. We are researchers. Through our Center for Local Knowledge, we've been able to describe the local African American community's tenacity, evidenced through the buying of property, the development of community aid organizations, and a thriving economic center before it was taken in the urban renewal process of the 1960s. Through our various mapping projects, we hope to re-articulate the dynamic historic African American community that's quickly being erased as a result of accelerated development within Charlottesville's core. Through our oral history repository, we hope to accomplish for Charlottesville what HistoryMakers has done for the nation. Moreover, projects like Swords and a Plowshare that proposes to use the material from the Robert E. Lee statue that in just 1 month would have been in our community for 100 years had it not been removed. We hope to create a new anti-monument that engages with our area's collective memory and hopes to signal to our residents and visitors alike the 21st century values of place and people. And finally, we are conveners. We're a safe place for our community to gather, whether it is to celebrate Juneteenth or Kwanzaa. To mourn its losses or to debate its most pressing issues. We are a touchstone in this community, giving it a place of empowerment. And I am honored to receive this award as acknowledgement of all the things we are and hope to be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Douglas and Juliana. I am now the last thing standing between you and coffee and cupcakes in the community partners tent. Please go see our community partners after the program concludes. For adding so much to this ceremony, I want to thank the U.S. Army Old Guard Fife and Drum Corps and Continental Color Guard, Caked Up Charlottesville, who prepared the cupcakes this year in honor of Thomas Jefferson's birthday, Blue Ridge Event Production, Commonwealth Event Company, Becky Burton and Mosaic Interpreting Services, all of our wreath presenters and our community partners. Please go learn more about their work in the tent. And thank you for coming on this beautiful and blustery morning. Good day.